Welcome back to the Blue Room. Today we're going to look at the away defeat to Brentford. After an incredibly tough run of fixtures, hopes were high that Watford would put in a good performance against a B side missing both Tony and Canos. The initial shape shown on TV proved to be erroneous, as the Hornets instead opted for more of a 4-2-3-1 shape to start the game, with Dennis playing through the centre and King moved out to the left flank. Brentford played the ball out short from the back and Watford looked less inclined to press the ball high up the pitch. Any pressing was disjointed and done by individuals rather than a group or team. Here Hernandez runs to put a player under pressure when Dennis seemed far better positioned to do so. As a result, when we win the ball back and switch it to the available Ranieri, he has no support around him as Hernandez is still in field. Brentford would work the ball into a wide area and then look to feed the ball into the box from either a deep or an attacking position. Here the ball was played forward from deep, and from the resulting spill Bachmann is forced to tip the ball over for a corner. This continued as the front line rarely exerted pressure on the Brentford backline whilst in possession, giving them time to play a pass and move supporting players into more advanced positions. Watford would halve the pitch on occasions, but even when we were in a position to aggressively press the ball, there was a real lack of intensity in our actions in comparison to previous matches. Here, Hernandez moves too slow to press the ball wide. Kuchka drops and the ball is returned in field and cleverly tries to press with some intensity, but it is too little too late and the ball is played forward for Brentford to continue the stronger of the start of the two teams. The theme continued, with the Bees playing through the Hornets and committing men forward, with 4 men getting into the box, having moved the ball forward with a succession of short passes. Watford, in contrast, seemed to want to play the ball on the break, but lacked any quality in their selection or execution of passing. The quicker build-up would often break down before reaching an attacking area, but when it did succeed, we had far few players in advanced positions to take advantage, as here with Hernandez crossing into an empty box, with only Dennis looking to get on the end of the ball, and King some distance behind. One positive piece of play by Troost-Ekong saw him rob the ball near the halfway line with an aggressive challenge, and the ball was quickly played to King, who was unfortunate to see his effort come off the post with the goalkeeper beaten. From the resulting cleverly corner, Dennis finished with very little movement needed, as the Brentford defence was deploying a zonal defence, which, as we have seen this season, can be very ineffective when the ball falls between two players' zones. Dennis capitalised with a powerful header to extend his fine run of form and presumably also extend the list of his admirers as the transfer window approaches. The half continued ebbing and flowing. Towards the end, Brentford won some corners and showed their intent of delivering the ball into the box whenever it was possible. The debate about Foster or Bachmann is at the moment a moot point, with Foster out injured until the new year. However, Bachmann is undoubtedly less dominant from a cross into the box and lacks Foster's physicality to come and claim a ball when players block his path, as was the case here. The ensuing effort going close and starting to cause panic in the Watford rearguard. The second half saw Brentford continue to try to be on the front foot, and Watford looked to sit deep and hit the Bees on the break. As we know, Watford's forte this season has not been our ability to suck up pressure and not concede, so it is fair to presume that many Watford supporters would have raised a curious eyebrow at this philosophy, as well as the continued use of Joshua King playing on the left flank that became an increasingly withdrawn and defensive role as Watford were unable to get the ball to stick in more advanced positions. A switching of Dennis, who has excellent defensive stats, to the left, and a switch to King going back up front into a position that would allow his strength to perhaps allow us to retain the ball, seemed an obvious choice, but hindsight, as we know, is 20/20. For me, the moment that turned the game came with a free kick to the Hornets in the 52nd minute. The Industrious cleverly took the kick, but woefully underhit it, and it was cut out by the first defender. The ball was worked quickly to Mbeumo, who broke down the left-hand side. Whilst Cleverly tried desperately to recover, it was Joshua King who came past him to break up the Bees' counter-attack. Ranieri was immediately seen remonstrating with his subs, who were not warming up with the intensity that he had wanted, and as he had seemingly decided that Cleverly needed to be replaced. Cleverly, for his part, continued getting about in the midfield. Ranieri's curious decision to change shape to 4-4-2 may have had more to do with the players on the bench that were actually fit than his tactical preference. Watford had named 2 goalkeepers on the bench, which never indicates a clean bill of health for the outfield players available. Cabaselli, we know, has been on the bench for weeks, but at no point has been brought onto the park, which seems odd, bearing in mind some of the defensive lapses shown. Loser has performed well in deep midfield and has helped us to keep the ball, but is curiously and suddenly not the player to go to when we are starting to be overrun in midfield and our passing selections are poor. Whilst all this may or may not be the case, it seems odd to take out a man from the midfield. It seems even more odd when the wide men in the now 4-4-2 shape are both career-long centre forwards, and the 2 players playing centre forward more often play in wide areas. Whatever the case, Ranieri's tinkering simply did not work, and Brentford were immediately even more in the ascendancy, with Watford hoping for a goal on the counter to close the game out. The number of Brentford players in advanced positions and the deliveries into the box saw increasingly frantic defending from the Hornets before clearing and typically surrendering possession once more. Franks made a couple of subs to provide Brentford with fresh legs as they continued driving at a high tempo. Watford did have a couple of moments, however, when they might have sealed the game. Sissoko was played in through João Pedro, and the Frenchman was pulled back, but the referee adjudged that the Brentford defender's colleague was covering, and so only a yellow was shown. Hernandez put the resultant free kick into the stand. Again, Brentford showed that they were happy to try to bang the door down, pouring more men into advanced positions, and the panicking Watford backline getting whatever they could on the ball to clear or save, until João Pedro played Dennis in for the Nigerian to cleverly reverse his defender and drive infield, before threading King for an angled shot that might have settled the game, but the Norwegian could only put his effort straight at the keeper. Another curious substitution from Ranieri saw the just returned to fitness Sema come on for Hernandez on the right-hand side. Sema, being almost entirely left-sided, provided no natural balance, and even turning back and being caught in possession within a minute of his inclusion. This really felt like square pegs being pushed into round holes. Simply nothing clicked. Time and time again, Brentford attacked and we desperately tried to keep them out. However, the momentum was almost entirely one way, with Watford showing little attempt, let alone ability to retain the ball for any period. A corner was defended, and the second phase saw a Brentford player switch back onto his left foot from a wide right position and deliver an in-swinging cross. A header took the ball to the far post, where Janssen had stolen in between Kiko and the ball-watching Troost-Ekong to equalise. VAR performed its usual task of extending everyone's agony a little longer before concluding that, as everyone knew, that the goal was onside. Ranieri's final roll of the dice was to bring on Tufan for Dennis. King went up front, Sema moved to the left, possibly an admission that his changes had not worked, or perhaps just adding on the only fit player left, as Ranieri had shown little desire to use Tufan as a preference up until now. The momentum had been with the home side for the whole of the second half, but now the crowd sensed blood and Franks roared his men forward whilst Ranieri threw his arms up in the air in frustration, seemingly impotent to do anything to affect the game. The crescendo came with Mbeumo played into a left-hand channel. Heading for the goal line, Troost-Ekong made an ill-judged and poorly executed lunge for the ball. Every Hornet fan will have known what was going to happen. The Nigerian captain, who had up until the first goal a fairly error-free game for him, simply does not possess the decision-making ability to eradicate his own individual errors that have simply littered the season. The penalty was given and dispatched, seeing joyous scenes from the home fans. Summary. This was as disjointed a performance as we have seen under Ranieri, just as, how the board might put it, team cohesion should be visibly improving. Troost-Ekong can simply not be allowed to be causing us a goal a game in simply cataclysmic individual mistakes, but without seemingly fit replacements, what choices does Ranieri have? Bachmann needs to try to help take some pressure off the defence by taking the ball from crosses or punch clear like Gomez used to. Simply allowing the ball to come into the box uncontested is simply spreading panic that we do not need. We've used King on occasions wide left, but he must not be stuck out there when we cannot get the ball to stick up front. This is not using the tools that we do have available. The medical team, get Nkulu fit as quick as possible and sign 2 capable centre-backs in the January window, please, even if they're free agents. One hopes that Gino will have patience, as we have a man at the helm who absolutely has the experience to move us in the right direction. Last night we were less than the sum of our parts, but we must hope that he can prompt a reaction following a poor performance, similar to last season, where after a disappointing game against some team from somewhere, I don't know where, we went on to Norwich and produced a result and a performance. Going to Burnley this week is this season's equivalent of Norwich. Fingers crossed.